Okay, so you know how it is. You've got this pile of articles, maybe a whole book, just sitting there, and you really just want the key takeaways, right? The bits that make you go, ah, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, the shortcuts to the good stuff.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing today. We're going to deep dive into a book that definitely got people talking back in the day. Secrets of the Alpha Male, How to Get Rid of the Nice Guy and Get Laid by Carlos Xuma. This one's from 2004.
Right, and I mean, that title alone, it's pretty direct, isn't it? Doesn't leave much room for interpretation about its main goal.
No kidding. It sets out a very clear path. Move away from being the quote-unquote nice guy towards this alpha man idea.
And the aim seems to be success, especially with women, but he links it to overall life success, too.
Yeah, and Zuma frames it through his own experience. He says he went from, and this is his phrase, asshole, to nice guy and back again before figuring out this inner alpha.
Quite the journey he lays out there.
So if you're tuning in for those aha moments, those actionable bits, well, we're going to try and unpack the core ideas of his alpha man concept. Think of this as your quick guide to what he was getting at.
Okay, sounds good. So where do we start? How does Zuma actually define this alpha man?
Well, he describes him as basically a dominant male, as someone who combines like inherent masculine traits with these deliberately developed alpha ways of thinking.
So it's partly nature, partly nurture in his view.
Seems like it. And the result, he says, is powerful behavior, dominance, leadership qualities. It's a pretty strong stance to take right out of the gate.
It is. And he leans into comparisons with the animal kingdom, doesn't he?
He does. Talks about the alpha wolf, the pack leader idea, the whole pecking order. He even brings up this old study from 1922, I think.
Uh-huh, the one with the starving hens.
Yeah, that's the one. Using it to argue that hierarchies and like respect for the strong are sort of natural.
It's a classic analogy, though obviously human dynamics are a bit more complex than chickens.
For sure. But here's something interesting. He does acknowledge you can be too alpha.
Okay, so it's not just about pure aggression then.
Apparently not. He suggests that being overly aggressive can actually backfire, hurt your chances with mating or holding on to resources. So there's a line.
That's actually a pretty important nuance. It suggests he's aiming for a kind of calibrated dominance, not just, being a bulldozer.
Right. And then he contrasts this alpha man with the beta guy, or the nice guy. This is central to his argument.
And his take is that men have gotten softer, while women have gotten harder.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. He frames it as this societal shift that he thinks hasn't really worked out well for anyone. It's definitely a traditional view on gender roles he's putting forward there.
Which is key to understanding the whole premise, really. He sees the alpha man idea as a kind of corrective to that perceived trend. It's very much a product of its time, the early 2000s perspective.
Absolutely. And another thing that jumped out at me, he says men are meant to create themselves, not just discover themselves.
Okay, what does that mean exactly? Less navel-gazing, more action.
Pretty much. He sort of downplays the need for tons of therapy to sort through your past. It's much more focused on what you do now to shape who you become.
That's a very action-oriented philosophy, like take control, build yourself. It could sound empowering to some, I suppose.
Yeah, empowering or maybe dismissive of past experiences, depending on your view.
True. It emphasizes personal agency, the power to consciously change rather than being defined by what happened before.
Okay, so that gives us a baseline for his alpha man. Let's get into the specifics. What traits, what behaviors does he actually push for? Mindset and self-confidence seem huge.
Oh, absolutely. That seems to be the foundation for everything else. He hammers home that deep self-confidence is crucial.
And interestingly, he argues it's more important than just like conventional good looks.
Right. It's the alpha man behavior, the way you carry yourself, that matters most, according to him. Looks are secondary.
And he has this concept, the alpha spiral. What's that about?
It's basically a positive feedback loop. So maybe you start with a bit of confidence, even if it's just based on looks initially. That leads to positive interactions, maybe some success. And that success then fuels more confidence, which leads to more positive outcomes and so on. You spiral upwards, basically.
I see. So initial confidence, even if shaky, can build on itself through experience.
Exactly. It highlights how taking that first step, getting some positive reinforcement, can really snowball.
Another big piece seems to be tackling the fear of rejection.
Huge. He really tries to reframe it.
Yeah.
His argument is, look, getting rejected might sting for a moment, but the long-term pain of not trying, of regretting inaction, is way worse. So you just got to push through that fear.
And he pushes persistence really hard, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like, just keep going.
Yeah, he basically says persistence will lead to success even if you have to change tactics. He uses this analogy, something about a bird feeder.
Oh, right. The school-proof bird feeder.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you can't get exactly what you want in the way you're trying, but persisting and finding some solution is the key.
Pretty much. It's about resilience and adaptability, not just banging your head against a wall.
And then there's that bold statement, nothing is neutral. What's the idea there?
It's this call to action, really. Everything you do, or even don't do, has an effect. So you can't just drift. You need to take the wheel, steer your life intentionally.
Be proactive, not reactive.
Precisely. Take ownership.
Okay, switching gears a bit, goals and priorities. He's got a pretty direct take on where women fit into the picture.
Yeah, this is one of the core tenets, isn't it? Women should be a secondary goal.
Not the main focus.
Right. They should be like a side benefit, I think is the phrase he uses. A result of you living a full, confident life already.
So your own mission, your own purpose, that comes first.
Yes. He argues that having your own compelling vision for your life is actually more attractive to women than, say, just having a decent job. It's about your internal drive.
And he suggests tying like short-term rewards to those bigger goals to keep yourself motivated.
Yeah, engineering little pleasures along the way. It's a practical, motivational technique, celebrating the small wins to keep you going on the long path.
Okay, now this might sound a bit counterintuitive given the book's title, but he actually talks quite a bit about emotional intelligence.
Yes. It's not just about being tough or dominant. He really stresses understanding and managing emotions your own and other people's, especially women's.
So it's more nuanced than just be the boss.
Definitely. He sees emotional skill as vital for overall life success, not just dating.
And he breaks down the alpha way to handle specific emotions, like fear.
Right. Fear is something to understand, to rationalize. Guilt involves self-forgiveness, but also recognizing it in others. Happiness is about clearing out the negative emotional clutter.
And then there's that weird bit about frustration.
Yeah, using frustration in conversations with women.
Yeah.
He distinguishes it from anger, suggesting it can actually create sexual tension.
That sounds like walking a very fine line.
It does. It's a provocative idea, certainly, about leveraging emotional dynamics. But yeah, easy to get wrong, I'd imagine.
And it connects emotional self-control, being patient, with inner security. So those are attractive traits.
Which makes sense. Emotional regulation generally signals maturity, stability, things most people find appealing in a partner.
Okay, let's move into social dynamics. He introduces this term, perceived value, or PV. What's the deal with that?
It's basically your stock value in a woman's eyes. He argues your actions constantly make it go up or down.
So give me an example. What tanks your PV, according to Xuma?
Things like being overly needy, constantly seeking her approval, always putting her needs way ahead of yours without any balance. That kind of stuff signals a lack of self-worth in his view.
And what raises it?
Confidence, having your own life, your own interests, setting boundaries, basically demonstrating that you have value independent of her.
Makes sense. He also mentions having a good social circle, other guys as role models, other alphas, he calls them.
Yeah, the importance of social proof and having positive male influences. And he also, interestingly, touches on using little white lies.
Oh, for what purpose?
Mostly for social lubrication, keeping things harmonious. It's a pragmatic point, maybe a bit ethically gray for some.
Right. And then there's this idea of influence, being able to affect your environment, show control in situations, especially with women, but without being aggressive.
Exactly. It's about skillful influence, not just brute force. He also talks about power in relationships.
How so?
Reducing your need for her approval, specifically, and increasing what he calls referent power, basically. Being more attractive because you have high social value, charisma, that kind of thing.
So it's a more subtle form of power based on your own qualities.
Precisely. Less about control over her, more about your own inherent value making you influential.
Okay, communication and interaction.
Yes.
This seems like a huge chunk of the book. Humor comes up first.
Yes, big emphasis on humor. He has that line, fun sex in a woman's mind.
Catchy, if a bit simplistic.
Well, yeah, but the core idea that being fun and witty is attractive is pretty widely accepted. It signals intelligence, social ease.
He even suggests voice exercises.
To project more confidence. And eye contact, too, seeing it as a status indicator. And just being relaxed generally conveys self-assurance.
Then there's this concept, lacunas. What are those?
Lacunas, think of them as blind spots. Areas of uncomfortable reality about yourself or your life that your mind just kind of blocks out or avoids.
Like things you don't want to admit.
Exactly. Maybe a failing, a mistake, an insecurity. He argues that real growth means facing those head on, not ignoring the elephant in the room.
Okay. And he gives advice on handling arguments, right? Like not getting defensive.
Yeah, specific tactics for conversations. Don't react defensively, set boundaries, don't get manipulated. Also, the idea of maintaining some mystery, don't spill everything about yourself on day one.
Keep him guessing a bit. He also mentions peacocking.
Yeah. Standing out visually, using your appearance to initiate interest. Think distinctive clothing or accessories.
Right. And tips on giving compliments, using set openers to start chats, even reframing rejection positively again.
It's a very practical toolkit he's offering for social interactions, really. From nonverbals to specific lines and strategies, the rejection reframing is key for building that resilience he values.
He also touches on spotting tests, or even lies from women, differences in post-sex thinking between men and women, prioritizing her pleasure.
Yeah, it gets into the nitty-gritty of perceived male-female dynamics and potential gamesmanship in dating.
And that thing where a woman might act cold to test your confidence.
Right, interpreting distance as a potential test of the man's security. And advising against apologizing too much, knowing when not to seek forgiveness. It's very specific, maybe even cynical at times, playbook. It's definitely mapping out perceived patterns and offering responses within that alpha framework. You have to take it as his interpretation, of course.
Okay, moving towards lifestyle.
Yeah.
Physical fitness gets a strong mention.
Big time. Working on your body, getting in shape. He also warns against getting too comfortable.
Comfort is the enemy of progress.
Something like that. Complacency holds you back from goals. He stresses personal accountability, creating your own code of conduct, and crucially, not constantly needing others' approval.
Which ties back to that core confidence idea.
Exactly. It needs to be internal. He also has this quantum leap theory of self-confidence.
Quantum leap. Sounds dramatic.
Yeah. It's the idea that you can make big, sudden jumps in your self-perception, not just slow, tiny steps. Aim high with your self-belief.
Interesting. And continuous learning.
Yep, ABL, always be learning. Reading, self-improvement, having a personal philosophy, a mission statement for your life.
And a warning against liquid balls.
Yeah, his term for relying on alcohol to overcome fear or anxiety, especially with women, he sees it as a crutch.
So self-reflection, affirmations, it's a whole personal development package, really.
It is. It covers mindset, physical health, values, learning quite comprehensive in its own way.
And finally, the really direct dating and seduction strategies.
Right, the practical how-to part. Things like always having a plan for a date. Don't just wing it.
Build rapport first, then escalate physically, but confidently and gradually.
Yes. And advice on dealing with cockblockers, friends who might interfere. And that slightly unusual tip about not giving her your number initially.
Oh.
The idea is to take her number, maintaining control of the follow-up. It positions you as the one pursuing, but on your terms.
Oh. And assume the sale when asking for the date, like expect a yes.
Basically project confidence that she'll want to go out with you. He also suggests letting the woman fall in love first.
Meaning?
Don't rush your own feelings or declarations. Let her develop stronger feelings initially. And that tactic of maybe pulling back your interest slightly to increase hers?
Playing a bit hard to get.
Sort of, yeah. Creating a bit of challenge or uncertainty. Plus, advice on spotting time wasters, chick players as he calls them, and some basic tips on sex, emphasizing foreplay.
So it's a very strategic approach to dating from start to, well, finish.
Extremely strategic. Lots of specific tactics and mindsets aimed at maximizing success within his defined alpha framework.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The core message of Secrets of the Alpha Male, as we've unpacked it, really seems to be about taking a proactive, confident, emotionally aware stance in life and love.
Yeah, shedding those passive nice guy habits as he sees them and adopting these alpha traits. It's a call to action for men.
And it's definitely a product of its time, isn't it? Early 2000s dating advice landscape.
Absolutely. It reflects certain anxieties and ideas about masculinity and relationships from that specific period.
Which is important context for anyone listening. You've got to consider these ideas through that lens. And maybe ask yourself, do any of these alpha ideas actually resonate? Are there bits you might apply or consciously reject in your own life?
That's the real takeaway question, isn't it? Because society keeps changing, ideas about gender roles evolve. So, beyond any specific book's formula, what does being a confident, successful person mean for you today in your own world, your own relationships?
That's definitely something to chew on. Hopefully this deep dive gave everyone some interesting points to consider whether you agree with Xuma or not.